OK, well, that's the Sunday papers, and Tony Wins will be joining us from Tamworth very shortly. But just before then, we'll go straight now to the Leader of the Opposition, Tony Abbott, who joins us from Sydney. Tony Abbott, good morning. Welcome.
Morning, Barry.
What are you going to do about Albie Schultz?
Well, Barry, look, I'll come to Albie in a sec, but the bottom line is last weekend's election produced 500,000 more votes for the Coalition than for the Labor Party, and under those circumstances it defies common sense that a corrupted Labor government should be put back into power.
Well, just before we go to Albie Schultz, on that point, though, surely we have a preferential system and you lost on the two-party preferred vote.
Well, but the bottom line is that the corrupted machine politics, which got rid of Kevin Rudd, has been totally discredited by this election, and the last thing we should see is this election putting back into power the same kind of faceless power brokers that have been utterly discredited and rightly discredited by this election result.
So if you're saying if the independents were to support Labor, you wouldn't regard that as a genuine mandate for Julia Gillard?
Well, the thing is that they say they want a new, clean politics that is not dominated by the machine. Machine politics triumphed with the execution of Kevin Rudd, the installation of Julia Gillard. The whole of the Labor Party's election campaign was a triumph of the faceless men. It was actually a disaster for the faceless men, but nevertheless they were absolutely in charge, even when Julia Gillard came out and said that she's getting rid of them. They gave her that script. So I think the last thing that we should do, if we want to see an end to machine politics, if we want to see a cleaner, more collegial parliament that is less dominated by the executive, is put Labor back. OK,
Albie Schultz, he seems to be wanting to do the negotiating for you.
Well, I think Albie regards himself as a pretty good friend of the three independents. He's known them for a long time. We've got some very robust, independent-minded members of the Coalition, and Albie's certainly one of them. But the point I keep making is that everyone has got to be treated with respect. No one should be pressured or heavied, and that's the counsel I'm giving to everyone.
But you don't mind that then that any individual within the Liberal Party picks up the phone and has a conversation with the independents?
Well, I can't stop mates talking to mates, but I say that it should all be done with respect.
OK, well, Rob Oakeshott says that he believes that the National Party leader Warren Truss is allowing a smear campaign to be run against him. Do you know what he's talking about there?
No, I don't, and I'm not aware that he's specified it. Look, I think that whether you're a country Liberal, a National Party member or a rural independent, you're basically articulating the discontent of rural Australia. The one-third of Australians who don't live in metropolitan areas, I think quite understandably feel that they've been neglected by city-centric politicians and particularly by a city-centric Labor Party. Now, essentially, they're speaking the same language, and I think the Coalition is very well placed to respond to those concerns.
But are you really satisfied that Warren Truss and Barnaby Joyce can work with the three independents?
Oh, yes, I am. Look, I think Warren and Barnaby have handled themselves with distinction and honour over the last few days.
By saying nothing.
Look, the three rural independents, they're all adults, they're all patriots. They all want to see the best possible deal for our country and particularly for regional Australia, and I think the Coalition can deliver that.
What has Warren Truss said over the last 3 days that you regard as meritorious?
Well, Warren has said that he understands their position, the three rural independents, and he's happy to work with them.
I must have missed that. I haven't seen him interviewed anywhere.
Well, look, Warren's been talking to lots of people, and certainly I've had lots of conversations with him, and that's very much the message that I'm getting. I mean, everyone wants a better deal for country Australia, and I think the Coalition is best placed to deliver that, Barry. Let's face it, my shadow cabinet has at least 6 members who live outside the metropolitan areas of our country, and that's why I say we are far better placed to respond to the discontents of rural Australia than the Labor Party.
But at some stage before any deal is done, do you think it's a good idea that the independents get together with Warren Truss and Barnaby Joyce so that it doesn't all unravel after the event?
Well, that's exactly what will be happening this week. They want to sit down with my various shadows to talk through various policy issues, and Warren and Barnaby are senior shadows, and so we'll all be sitting in a room this week thrashing out various policy issues, and I think there's going to be a lot of common ground.
OK, now the Nationals increased their numbers after the last election. Does that automatically mean then they're entitled to more ministerial positions?
There's a standard formula, but look, we are a little bit in uncharted territory at the moment. Rest assured, Barry, that this is going to be a strong coalition, a coalition of Liberals and Nationals. I understand that, and that's the way it'll go forward.
Now, Rob Oakeshott says of you that it's time for you to step up, and he asks the question, do you really want to be Prime Minister or not? Now, that's a recurring theme.
And Barry, I want to lead the best possible government for Australia. I want to lead a stable, competent government, and that's the last thing we're going to get from the Labor Party. Let's face it, they weren't stable or competent with a majority. They're going to be far worse without one.
Now, you have agreed to hand over your costings. When the negotiations are over, will you publicly release Treasury's assessment of those costings?
I'm sure all of that's going to come out, and one of the other good things about the arrangements that were made on Friday is that some Labor policies which are hitherto not properly costed will finally be costed. The National Broadband Network, the mining tax, Treasury at long last is going to be able to give us proper costings of that. The other thing, of course, that really ought to be looked at by Treasury is the emissions trading scheme, because I'm sure that Julia Gillard and Bob Brown have talked about an ETS or a carbon tax, and the impact of an ETS on the budget ought to be part of these costings as well.
But with those costings, though, you're saying that it'll all come out. Is that because you expect the independents will eventually talk about it?
Well, whatever emerges from this is obviously going to be some kind of a new deal, and obviously as part of the new deal, any changes to costings will come out, including the costings of the National Broadband Network, including costings of the mining tax, including the costings of the emissions trading scheme, which is obviously part of the deal that Bob Brown and Julia Gillard are doing for what will be inevitably a Labor-Green alliance should Julia Gillard be restored as Prime Minister.
Well, just summing up then, what do you believe are the odds of you being Prime Minister by the end of the week?
Well, I'm not going to speculate on that, but I think, Barry, that if what the rural independents want is a better deal for regional Australia, they're far more likely to get that from the coalition than from the Labor Party. If they want a new, clean politics, they're far more likely to get that from us than from Labor.
And what do you say of the analysis that you're better off stalking a minority Labor government in the medium term, that would enhance your prospects down the track?
I think the best thing is to get a stable and competent government for the next 3 years out of the election result that we've just had. Now, I know it's been a bit difficult, but I think that I have the necessary capacity to bring something positive out of this. I think that we should look at what's happened as an opportunity rather than as a problem or a crisis. I think only the coalition is going to give us a better functioning parliament. Only the coalition is going to give us a better deal for the regions and a cleaner politics not dominated by the faceless men of the machines.
Tony Abbott, thanks for your time this morning. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Barry.